Alright, so what we have here is the Olympus E-PL2 in silver. I guess let's just go quickly through some of the changes over the E-PL1. First, the um, the LCD is bigger at 3 inches. It also has twice the resolution of the original display at 460,000 pixels. Um, you know, aside from that, they've redesigned the body. It's more in line with the EP1 and EP2 design. Aesthetics aside, the handling is improved. As you can see in the back here, you can rest your thumb right against this part of the camera, and on the front you can curl your finger around the front battery grip. So you have a fairly decent grip on this relatively small camera, so you don't really have to worry about this thing falling out of your hands. Especially they've added texture to the leather-like material on the front here. It's more grippy as well, so again, it's really secure in the hands. The actual feel of this camera is pretty good for an entry-level camera. The front is aluminum. The back, I think, is plastic, which is the same as the EPL ones, but you can't really tell the difference because the color and the texture is the same. Only that when you touch this, it's a little bit colder than this side, so that normally means that this is metal and that isn't. At any rate, it's still a nice looking and feeling camera. More in the back, we have buttons that have been rearranged and redesigned. A welcome addition is this wheel over here, which is still a forward direction button as well. The EP1 and EP2 have an additional wheel at the top here. This one retains the record button. I guess one wheel is enough, or two if you include that one, but it does improve the control of the camera. For example, you can just rotate this to control aperture if you're in aperture priority mode, and let's say you want to change the some settings, so you just go up and down, highlight the setting, in this case aspect ratio, and then you just rotate to change the value. But another nice thing about this wheel is you can actually reassign the actions for this buttons here. In my case, I've changed it so that when you right click and rotate, it will change the white balance. When you down click and rotate, it will change the ISO. By default, the right changes flash mode, and the bottom or down changes the shooting mode from single to continuous and so on. But yeah, you can imagine when it's shooting, for example, again in aperture mode, you can look through the EVF, rotate the wheel to change the aperture, click rotate again, click rotate to change the white balance in the ISO without ever having to look take your eye off this piece here. And you can do it quickly too. Yeah, the usability much better than the EPL1 because you have your buttons, so you do a lot of button mashing essentially in the back. It is considerably better than the Nex 3 and Nex 5 as well, the mirrorless camera from Sony, because they have minimal buttons, no wheels at all, so any kind of parameter changing needs to be done on the menu system. With this camera, and like the GF1, the EP2, EP1, and other DSLR, changing the parameters is not a challenge at all. So aside from that, some of the changes inside include higher ISO at 6400, faster shutter at 4000, more art filters, better processing, and so on. That's just at the top of my head. But the other major change is not on the camera itself, but on the kit lens. You will notice that this kit lens is actually a little bit longer. The diameter is somewhat smaller. The lens itself is lighter, but the major difference is inside. This lens is internally focusing, so which means when you focus, this thing doesn't move back and forth. Also, the front element doesn't rotate. As a result, you can use polarizers on this thing without any problems. But more importantly, the focusing is silent and faster than the original kit lens, which makes it good for video, because you don't hear the motor focusing on the microphone, which is a good thing. Optical wise, it makes decent photos, images, and they're pretty sharp. Not much to complain about, except for the fact that this is mostly plastic, even the mount. But I guess most kit lenses are like that these days, so again, can't really complain about that. Though that's a nice kit lens, it's not as good as this lens right here. This is the Panasonic Lumix 20mm f1.7. Although it doesn't have image stabilization itself, the body stabilizes the lens, so it makes for a really nice street shooter. Actually, being a 20mm on a 2x crop, you get 40mm on a full frame format, which is, you know, right on the what do you call this, a normal range. So yeah, it's good for general purpose photography. Aside from the lens, what we have here is the Olympus VF-2 electronic viewfinder. It is a 1.4 megapixel display, which is much higher than this LCD. It's nice and bright. It is the image is also bigger than most OVF. You pretty much need this when you like to manually focus, because you know you see more detail, so it's much easier to focus than the LCD, which is pretty much a requirement if you're using any of these three lenses right here, but I'll talk about that in a bit. This other four lenses here can be mounted on this E-PL2 and other micro four thirds body. This one is a 40 to 150mm zoom lens from an E510. This adapter right here has electronic contacts, so the EXIF data is sent to the body, and it has autofocus, although it's quite slow because of, you know, not being optimized for contrast detect autofocusing. But you know, it's, for me, I don't really have a reason to replace this with the micro four thirds version. I'm happy with this. Images from this is actually quite nice. So the other three lenses here are all vintage and they're all manual. So first, this is the Canon FD mount 85mm 1.8. Basically becomes a 170mm telephoto lens on this body. It's quite solid. It's nice to use. It doesn't really overwhelm the camera that much. I mean, you know, it's, for being mostly metal, it still has a decent balance. Again, it's manual focus only. Aperture control is right here. This lens is my second favorite lens, at least on this camera. It is a Minolta 50mm f1.4. It's nice to take portrait shots with this thing. Bokeh is pretty nice too because of the, you know, high aperture rating of 1.4. Yeah, it really makes the camera look retro. I guess because it is that. I mean, it is vintage after all. This is again fully manual. Focusing is done only this way. Aperture is done this way, and if you set it to manual mode, you know, shutter speed is done this way. So you can see that, you know, if you know, you can control all those things without having to take your eye off the EVF. It's a nice way to control the camera actually. Lastly, we have here is the C-mount computer TV lens. It is a 12.5 f1.3. It's actually brighter or faster than this lens. It is a wide angle at 25mm on this sensor. It is actually even smaller than this already small lens, but it's all metal. The problem with this lens though, it's the image it produced doesn't fully cover the sensor of this camera, as you can see with this shadow here on the corners. You can kind of reduce that by changing the aspect ratio. You know, 16:9 is a little bit less noticeable, but it's still there. Again, you can't really complain too much. I mean, this lens cost me like what, $25? You know, not bad for a fast wide angle, if you ask me. But yeah, this camera is it's quite nice. I'm loving it. Thanks for watching.